You just heard that we got many challenges. Everything that we've had before us is taken away anytime. Judges at the federal level are being appointed. And I saw it with my own eyes. The man said he had never been in a courtroom. He had never handled a case. But he's getting a lifetime appointment. Those persons will be in place when you and I are dead and gone, unless they decide to retire. They get the right to sit as long as they want to sit by the Constitution. And so just like the president is unqualified, he appointing people who will make decisions on policy in our life that is being put in place. Here in New York State, racism is alive and well. Anytime a black woman should be the majority leader of our Senate, and yet people in the name of Democrats has walked away.
Tell the truth. That's right.
You need to look at that.
Yes, yes.
So we got a lot to do. And so the woman who's in charge of working with our president and the National Board of Directors will come. Let's stand and give her a welcome ovation, Ms. Paula Brown Edmond.
In that 15 minutes. Mrs. Dukes talked about compliance, okay? And it's almost a bad word in the association because you're out there doing great things, hopefully. You're out there implementing the programs of the association, hopefully. You're making sure that indeed you are carrying out the strategic plan of the NAACP. And then lo and behold, you get to a convention or you go someplace and somebody says to you from the registration area or just in general, well, let me look and see if you are compliant. And then lo and behold, you discover that you're not compliant. What does it take to be a compliant state conference? Mrs. Dukes and I talk about this all the time. What does New York State Conference have that one or two other state conferences don't have that make them compliant? And it sits in this room. So what do you have? How many do you have? How many are you required to have as a state conference?
6 and 6.
It's the 6 and 6 rule. So in order to be a compliant state conference, and unfortunately there are a couple of state conferences that are functioning in the name of a state conference, because really and truly they are not. If indeed they don't have a minimum of 6 branches that are chartered and 6 youth units, any combination thereof. It could be a youth council, it could be college chapters, it could be young adult councils, okay? But you have to have 6 and 6 in order to be a compliant state conference. After you're chartered as a unit, chartered as a state conference, you have to maintain 6 and 6. And unfortunately, we have a couple of state conferences that don't meet that criteria. What else do you have to do to be a compliant state conference? And now in terms of being a compliant branch or youth unit. You have a copy of it presidents have a copy of it in their packet. And that's one of the things I love about Mrs. Dukes, full transparency. You know what you're responsible for. You know what you've done. You know what you're supposed to do. Branch presidents have this in their packet and they will share it with their members when they get back. But a state conference and a branch must pay what? Assessments. The national office cannot function without your support. The state conference cannot function without your support. And so a state conference has a responsibility to pay assessments to the national office, as do you have a responsibility to pay an assessment to the national office. You also have a responsibility, per this document, to pay an assessment to the state conference. Because indeed, we all know, as hard as we work, and with the passion that we have, you can't do anything without what? Money, okay? So there is an assessment that must be paid annually by a state conference to the national office, And then you, as a unit of the association, and I know you don't like it, but when you signed on, some units are brand new, some have been around for 20 years, some have been around for 30 years, if not longer. Okay? When you signed on, when you wanted to become a chartered unit of the NAACP, you had certain fiduciary responsibilities. One of them is paying an assessment to the national office and paying an assessment to the state conference. You have another responsibility in order to stay compliant. What must you do? It's due March 1. What is that? Your year-end financial report. For which year? This year? When? 2017. It is due to the national office by 11:59, Thursday, March 1. Not March 2nd, not the 5th, not the week before the national convention. Hello, Walls. Okay? 11:59, Thursday, March 1. Now, you can do it hard copy and put it in the mail. We do now have the ability for you to do it online.
Nice. Thank God.
And as Mrs. Dukes indicated, our new president and CEO is focused. I almost think he's just focused, not just. He is so driven to make our lives and make your lives easier. So we're trying to get to a point where you're able to do it online, make your payment, get an acknowledgement. You don't have to call Nazar to find out if he got it. It'll click, you know you have it, and you're processed. You have to have an executive committee that functions.
Amen.
Where does the power of the branch sit? Where's the decision-making body of the branch?
Executive
Or the
board.
youth council? Or the college chapter? The executive committee. And just because I'm the president, and I say to you, I really think this room should be painted fuchsia, and you all as the executive committee know full well that the colors of the NAACP are the colors of the shirts right there,
Amen.
in the middle of the room, marigold, yellow, and blue. Can't let me paint this room fuchsia. Okay? Now somebody should talk some sense into me before the vote goes down. Okay? But hopefully when the vote goes down, you all vote me down, my motion,
That's right.
okay, to paint the room fuchsia. The executive committee is the decision-making body of the branch.
Amen.
And presidents, you're going to lose some votes sometimes. Okay? Hopefully it is for the betterment and the good of the branch, the youth unit, or the college chapter, and the community in which you work and you serve. Okay? So don't call me or write an Article 10 complaint about something that took place because somebody made a decision and your executive, because the first thing I'm going to ask for is the minutes. The minutes of the executive committee, the minutes of the general membership committee, to see what you actually decided and then what happened from there. A lot of times I won't get on the phone and just have a conversation. I really don't want to hear it. Because there's your side, there's his side or her side, and there's all that stuff in the middle that's really the truth. Okay, so sometimes I entertain it, and I'm really, I'm listening and I'm not. Because it's in the minutes, and that's really going to tell me what the real story is. Okay? So you have to have an executive committee. Who comprises the executive committee? Not Gloria Benfield, not Hilda Rogers, not Mrs. Dukes. Who comprises the executive committee? How did you
Elected
get there?
officers, chairs, and members at
Some of you
large.
were elected 2 years ago.
Some were
Some of you
appointed.
will be elected this year when we have elections. How many can you elect? 24. You can have up to 45. How do you get to 45? Not that we want you to have 45.
Appointments.
If you got 10,000 members, then you should have 45 members. But you've elected 8. How else do you get on the executive committee by?
Appointment.
By appointment. By who? Recommendation by who? And ratified by who? Hello, Walls.
Clear
Yes.
on that.
Just because you were appointed, you have to go through the process. Who else serves on the executive committee? The officers, yes. Who else?
Committee chairs.
Youth president, thank you. Who else? Youth advisor. Those are the only two people on the branch executive committee that are not elected by the branch and not elected by the branch. Okay, the advisor and the youth council president, because they're automatically served. Who else serves on the executive committee? If I'm chair of the education committee,
Call committee chairs.
if I'm chair of AXO, if I'm chair of civic engagement, if I am the treasurer, what else do I serve as chair of? The finance committee. Okay? So on the executive committee, officers who are elected, individuals who are elected, the youth president, the youth advisor, and chairpersons of standing committees. Okay? There should never be a meeting where each one of the chairpersons of the standing committees are not making a report. Okay?
Amen.
Now, I know Mrs. Dukes has preached this to you. You can't get up and make a report if you haven't done anything.
That's
And
right.
the time to do something is not at the meeting where you're making it up as you go along.
Right.
Okay? All right? So, she'll tell you in a minute, no sense in coming to the mic to make a report if you haven't done anything. And she knows whether you've done anything or not because she's got the emails that's telling her on a monthly basis what you're doing. The same thing holds true for your meetings. Chairpersons of committees should be meeting how many times? Minimum. Once a month at least.
Right.
If you're doing something, it may require more than that.
That's right.
Okay? But at least once a month. How many people should you have on your committee minimum? Three minimum. If it's just you and somebody else, it's not a committee, y'all. You're just sitting up having coffee and tea and talking. You're not accomplishing anything. You're not solving any problems. You're not making sure that the educational system for these young people at this table are what it should be in the community. If the education committee is just, he's just talking.
Say that.
So a minimum of 3 people should be meeting every month about the issues, about the agenda in education that the state conference has laid out, the initiatives from the national office. If you're in the NAACP, there's no want for work. Unfortunately, we overwork you if you're really working.
Amen.
Okay, and if you're really committed and passionate about the work that you do. And let's face it, guys, and I'm fortunate, I've been on the staff of the association for many, many years, as Mrs. Dukes has said, and I could not do this work if it were not for you in this audience who do the work day in and day out. It is a volunteer job. And I can tell you as a staff person, my job is a 9 to 5 or 9 to 5:30. Ms. Dukes can tell you, a lot of days I'm in there at 5:30 in the morning. Most days I'm there till 7. And I still leave yours truly there in the evening, Mrs. Mildred Bond Roxborough, at 7 o'clock, and 7:30. So even as a staff person, it's in your blood. It's in your soul. And you just give of yourself as you do as volunteers. So once a month,
everybody
committees
at this
should be meeting,
Wow.
should be working so that they can report out, and not just report, but you see some evidence of the work in your communities. That's a good, strong, solid branch. You're compliant, you're functioning, your officers are functioning, the secretary and the president, there's a checks and balances in terms of what? Your finances, right? Please, I had an instance the other day, Mrs. Dukes said, what hair I have left, and it's not brown anymore. They told me the president and the vice president were signing the check. Who should be signing the check? Treasurer and president.
Right.
Then I got another incident where the treasurer said, well, I'm not putting the branch president on the account. What? What?
That's right.
We just ask you to follow this. That's all we ask you to do. We don't ask you to interpret it. We don't ask you to read between the lines. If you call me and ask me a question, I tell you exactly what it says. Paula doesn't interpret it. Remember what Monteverdi used to say? I just report the news, I don't make it. That's what I do. Okay? It's not what Paula Brown Edme says. It's this. So if you just do that, you won't have some of the problems that I see across this country. I want to just say, read the book. Okay? The other balance to the check is what's required when you draw a check.
Money in the bank.
What's required when a branch has to draw a check? What's required?
Money in
A
the bank.
voucher. That requires what? The signatures of who? Secretary and who?
President.
Who did you say? Secretary and President. You're right. You're right. You got it. You got it. The Secretary and the President sign the vouchers. Vouchers signed, invoices attached.
We don't sign a voucher, right?
Say that again? Did I make a mistake? The voucher is the President and the Secretary. The check
Check
is
request.
the President
That's what she's talking
and the
about. Check
Treasurer.
request.
Now, we just don't expend
Yeah, we
money.
got it. We got it.
So what were you doing besides enjoying the holiday, but between October, November, and December in your branch, what you should have been doing? What were you doing?
Registering people to vote.
It's going to be a new year. What were you doing?
October, November, voter registration, you had to vote.
No, in terms of operation of your branch, what were you doing? You were projecting a budget, I hope,
Somewhat. No, we
for 2018,
somewhat.
as Mrs. Dukes has ready for you all to vote for 2018. Your committees were meeting so that they could project what they were going to do. You don't know everything. Things jump off. We know that. Things happen. But projecting what your focus was going to be based on the initiatives, the strategic plan, the initiatives of the state conference. And so therefore, in every area, every committee should have been putting together what their plan, what their work plan was going to be for 2018. And then attached to that is a budget,
Special note on that.
right? Right?
We did
How many
talk
of you
about
all
the
did that? Tell the truth.
We need to add them into our budget for the
I know the state
convention.
conference is that you have to follow the example of your state conference. Because then what happens is you have a budget to work from that you have to raise money for, okay? In addition to paying your assessments, but you have to raise money for it to do the work. So I just can't come in there, I'm the chair of a committee, and I have a voucher for something that's not what budget is. And obviously, if I come in there with something that I went over budget, and guess what? I might have to eat that. I might have to eat that. Because it wasn't in the budget. You didn't raise the money for
Do you
it.
have a budget?
Okay, now the branch should have some kind of contingency fund over
Should
here.
have one.
But we know you have to work hard to raise that money. Okay? And so it has to be allocated, and it has to be accounted for. And it has to be spent in the proper way, doing what? The work of the NAACP. Okay? You have delegates that you're trying to send to your state convention. You have delegates that you're trying to take to the national convention. Where's the national convention going to be? San Antonio, Texas. It's going to be hot, y'all. That's because
They'll
Lucy's
let us know how
forward
much
in
it's gonna
San Antonio.
cost.
But it's
How
a
much it's
good
gonna
place
cost,
to be.
yeah.
It's going to be hot, it's going to be humid. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. The branch is working hard, okay? But you got to raise money, and you got to have a budget, and you've got to know what you're doing, okay? So, in essence, when you talk about compliance,
I pledge
and you
to
talk
raise
about being a
$2,000
good,
just
strong,
for
solid
that trip.
branch, you have to function. And as those committees function, then what happens next? You have your meeting of your what? Executive committee. All right?
Longer than 15 minutes, time to get out.
Folder. Okay, healthy units checklist. See, Mrs. Dukes, New York State Conference is like none other. What a healthy unit checklist. Accessible. You must have an NAACP mailing address. Okay? Where people can send something to you. If you don't have an office, you have an address. You have published telephone numbers. People shouldn't have to figure out where you are. Okay? They should be able to call you, know that there's a phone number, and that they can reach you. That somebody is either going to answer that phone, or we all know your volunteers. Somebody's going to retrieve those messages and be able to respond, okay? To have complete access to a fax machine. Yes, those still do exist.
Agendas.
We don't scan everything and send it electronically.
Extra agenda.
And there are people out there who still operate with fax machines, and so we should certainly still have those in place. In this day and age, email addresses are crucial to being able to function as an NAACP unit. And you can't just let them pile up in the email.
We have,
Now, you know, I'm
we got
afraid, listen,
problem.
you come
We
into,
got
I know,
two
you come
email
in,
accounts.
you got phone
AIM
calls,
account and
you
a
have
Gmail
hard
account.
mail to
We
go
gotta
through
eliminate
still,
that AIM
and then you have emails. But you have to go through them. And sometimes they're time sensitive, okay? All right? So you have to check emails every day. File your updated branch officers report form. Can I express that one more time? File an updated branch officers report form. Mrs. Dukes can't communicate with you. I can't communicate with you. How many of you get, I know you get them from Mrs. Dukes, but you get these notices from the national office. What you should have gotten yesterday was the statement in regard to that fool at the White House.
Did not get it. Didn't get it. I didn't get that one.
We communicate from that's not really what I wanted to get out to you, and what we try to get out to you, and Mrs. Dukes gets out to you on a regular basis, are emails from the national office in terms of national statements, in terms of national policy. We want you to get it in real time. We don't want you out in the community saying, well, what is the state conference saying? Or what is the NAACP's position? I didn't want anybody out there not knowing that the NAACP was on top of this. But I can't communicate that to you, and Mrs. Dukes can't communicate that to you in real time if we do not have correct email addresses. How do we get correct email addresses? It's through the branch office's report form. I know she's got every one of them here for you. I need them in the national office as well. Even when we've had an instance, unfortunately, of filing, of having to get information for an Article 10 complaint, when I tried to send the correspondence to the individual that the complaint is lodged against, I got to dig through God knows what to get the person's address. It's incorrect in the membership system. It's not on the report form. It's like pulling teeth sometimes just to get the address. Okay? So that's very, very crucial for communication purposes. Okay? And we talked about the 2017 year-end financial report form. We talked about the infrastructure of a branch, 50 members minimum. Every branch, Mrs. Dukes, the New York State Conference, thank you, Mrs. Dukes, every branch should have at least 100 members, at least. And young people, you're very, very, very transient, and mobile, and doing all kinds of things. Don't hover around 25.
That's right.
Okay? People go away to school. They're focused on, you know, college, and they're focused on work and all other kinds of things in your life. You want to make sure that you have a minimum of 50 members. Okay? So that when you drop, you don't drop below 25. Okay? And then you're scrounging, trying to get functioning again. Okay? All right? And the New York State Conference is on a mission to make sure that every branch has a youth council that is affiliated with it, that if there are colleges in the area of the branch, that there is a college chapter, okay? None of us are going to be around forever. These young people in this room and beyond have to be involved in the NAACP, trained in the NAACP, work in the NAACP, to do the work of the NAACP, and to take our places. Okay?
That's right.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank you, President Dukes, for having me here today. And it's my first time meeting a lot of you, so I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm actually from Philadelphia. Oh, okay, Philly. Go Eagles today. Go Eagles. So I'm from Philadelphia, and I actually just moved to Baltimore back in September in order to start working at the headquarters on the Environmental and Climate Justice Program. And so my background is in public health, and I, for several years, was working for a nonprofit on food access. So really food justice work, making sure that everyone has access to healthy, affordable food. And so, oh, it's on. Okay. Thanks for clapping. Okay, let's see. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. But yeah, so this is, I just wanted you to have a little bit of a visual. But yeah, so anyway, so I know that food justice is a part of environmental and climate justice, and so it's really an honor to be able to now work with the NAACP on the larger spectrum of environmental and climate justice. So what I'd like to talk about today is really just giving you a little bit of an overview on the program. I know several of you might be familiar with it, but especially for those who are newer, just wanted to make sure you know about the program. And really it's interesting because the Environmental and Climate Justice Program, or we call it the ECJ program, is really relatively new in the association, given, compared to other programs like health and education that have been around for many decades. This program, I believe, has only been around in existence for a little less than 10 years. So just want to give you some overview of that. So I want to give you an overview of the program, what my role is, which is really to be a support to you all, and then also share about some resources that we have. So first, I just want to show you a picture of our team. This is not everyone, as you can see, because I'm not on there, but this is the majority of the team. And the reason I wanted to show you a picture is because there's been so much transition over the last 6 months. And so a lot of these folks are new and people that you might not be familiar with. So President Duke's already referenced in the top middle is Jackie Patterson, who is our fearless leader. She's our director. And then new, just starting in August, is Jane English. She's our program manager. And all the way on the top left, your top right, is Katie, and I'm going to highlight her because she's our communications manager, and what she really does is get information from you all about the work that you're doing in your branches so that she can highlight that on the national website and make sure that the work that you're doing is highlighted, so that for two reasons. Number one, just to highlight the great work that you're doing, but also so that people in your state can see what's happening, and if they want to join, they can. So anyway, that's her. And then on the bottom, we have our policy and research team. And so what they really do is provide materials for all the state conferences and the branches to use so that you can, actually President Dukes kind of referenced that a little bit, so that you all can, have some information and some research and data about what's happening around environmental and climate justice in your area. And then the two over on the bottom right are Liz and Swatha, and they also work with Youth in College. So I just want to highlight that. I know the Youth in College left the room, but just wanted to highlight that they really work on youth in college engagement in environmental and climate justice issues. So then this is the remainder of the team, and I wanted to specifically highlight us only because we, that's me, of course, on the right, and then Marnice Jackson on the left. Really, we're the field team that really works. Our purpose is really to connect what's happening in the ECJ program at the national level to all of the branches. And so my role is as a regional organizer for regions 2 and 7, so that's the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. So the states from Maine down to Virginia. Marnice is she's located in Detroit and works in the Midwest and Plain states. And then in a couple of months, we're gonna hire 2 more staff so that we can have our 4 people, so that we'll have a full staff for the entire country, so that one person will do the West and another person will do the South and Southeast. So that's all of us there. And so I just wanted to, share that really the basis of our program, and President Dukes hit on this too, the basis of our program is really recognizing that so many of these health impacts, whether it's because of factories emitting pollution and all of these different things, from dumping harmful materials, and the impacts of climate change when it comes to disaster relief and recovery, and all of those things really hit African American communities disproportionately. And so that's really why we work on this. And so with that, our mission is, I just put that up there, our mission is advancing the leadership of frontline communities to eliminate environmental and climate injustice and ignite an environmental, social, and economic revolution. And the way that we work on that mission is really with 3 objectives. And so our main objectives are to advance energy efficiency and clean energy, and along with that, reduce harmful emissions, especially greenhouse gases. And then the third one is to build community resilience. And that, a lot of that is, with all these different crazy storms and things like that happening, making sure that there's, that our communities really have the plans in place that they need in order to have minimal damage, and also to have like a really proactive plan in place to make sure that people can be safe in the midst of these types of storms. So one example I just wanted to quickly give about, I'm just going to mention this really briefly, only because you all are here and from the, all from New York, is that I don't know if you all have heard about in the Albany area, and I'm going to mention the neighborhood South Albany and Sheridan Hollow, that those two neighborhoods, which are predominantly lower income, predominantly communities of color, are really impacted by exhaust from trucks that go by on the highway there. And then there's also these power plants that are nearby, and there have been these documented health impacts on the nearby community. And so these are examples of things that are happening and things that people are trying to change policies, bring in interventions so that people won't have to, kids won't be running around with asthma as they're trying to just play ball and they're, having their inhaler, or, people having their lives cut short because they have different types of breathing problems and cancers and things like that. So, yeah, I just want to give that as an example. Okay. And so just really quickly, my role, like I was mentioning, and all the roles of the organizers throughout the country for our program, is really to support the state conferences and the branches. And so I just listed up several things here for you all. This is not a comprehensive list, but just to let you know a few things. So we provide technical assistance as you all are carrying out your environmental and climate justice interventions and things like that. We provide support in helping you with the structure of your program, so helping to put in place ECJ chairs if you need any support in that, and also structuring the committee, the ECJ committee. We also help with organizing local events. So let's say you want to have a town hall, or you want to have kind of any informational session, or you need a training on energy justice or community resilience or things like that, then we can help put that in place. We also, one other key thing that we do is we help to connect you to coalitions. As you all know, there are a lot of people now throughout the country who are working on environmental and climate justice work. And if there are any groups that come to us, a lot of times they might come to us on the national level, a lot of times they might come to you at the branch level or on the state conference level too, but a lot of times they do come to the national office just inquiring about the different things or letting us know about policies that they're trying to push through. And it's really helpful for someone from the NAACP and other like-minded groups to be a part of those so that we can make sure that there's an equity lens, because you can address environmental and climate justice and still there be like a desperate impact when it comes to who's really helped by those initiatives. So when we can be a part of those larger coalitions, we can, one part that we really play in that is being able to really bring an equity lens and really think about the communities of color specifically that are impacted by these issues. And ultimately the desired outcome as you're doing these different efforts is that we want to have some changed policies, some ordinances passed, some interventions that are put into place so that there can be that true impact that really ultimately saves lives. One key thing I wanted to mention, and when President Dukes and I were talking, she had read through this new report, Fumes Across the Fence Line. We, as I was mentioning earlier, our team creates a lot of reports just so that we can highlight specifically not only environmental and climate justice, environmental issues and climate change issues, but also specifically how it impacts communities of color. So these are just an example. Those are the covers there up there. This is just an example of some of the reports that we have. But I do want to highlight our most recent report, which is Fumes Across the Fence Line. So Fumes Across the Fence Line was just published 2 months ago in November, and they had like this big launch and a public event on it. And what the report is about is it really highlights the health impacts from oil and gas facilities on African American communities. And so I just have listed here a couple of things specifically. It's a report like on the national level and talks about data for different parts of the country, different states, different regions, different communities. But I did want to just kind of like share with you a couple of things that were highlighted from New York. So the report found that over 5,500 African Americans in the state of New York live within a half-mile radius of oil and gas facilities. And the concentration seemed to mostly be near the southwestern part of the state and the western part, like Erie County, Buffalo. A lot of it was concentrated there. And along with that, the health impacts, that there are over 15,000 lost school days for school children in New York due to oil and gas facility operation, and that's because of more than 21,000 reported asthma attacks that could be traced back to oil and gas facility operation. So that's just the number that could be traced back. I mean, there's many, there's over 400,000, asthma attacks in New York annually, but those were just the number, over 21,000 that could be traced to these oil and gas facilities. And so I just wanted to highlight that. And if you have more questions on this report, Marcus, who was on that first slide, the only gentleman that was on that slide of my team, he was one of the co-authors of the report. So if you have questions, you can reach out to him or you can reach out to me and I can put you in contact with him. And then lastly, I wanted I can send, President Dukes, I can send you this information just so it can be sent out as well. But I wanted to highlight a couple of upcoming webinars. We're really going to have more throughout the year, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of upcoming webinars that can really help you. Of course, obviously, the webinars are free, and all you have to do is just register so that you can get online and participate. Marnice and I, from the field team's perspective, we have 3 webinars that we're going to be doing this upcoming week and also the following week. They're actually the same exact webinar, but we have them at different times during the day, in the evening, and things like that, so that it increases people's opportunity to participate. Right. So that we're going to talk about concrete methods to achieving environmental justice. And then our research and policy team and communications team is going to put on Just Energy Policies and Practices Action Toolkit. And that's going to be on the 17th and also the 24th. And so we can get that information to you. And the really awesome thing about the toolkit is that it has all these modules that go into specific detail of how you can do specific interventions and policy advocacy and things like that related to energy justice. So that's really it I wanted to put on there. But I did want to say, I did have one thing I wanted to show you really quickly. Yes, here we go. So I'm going to be here at least for the next couple of hours, and I have 100 of these at my chair. And what it is it's just a questionnaire, and all it is really we're just asking for your contact information, and then for your there's 5 things here, and basically there are different types of things like the release of harmful emissions. If you're interested, if you know that there's in your specific community or your branch wants to target something around reducing harmful emissions, or you are interested in having an energy justice training, or disaster preparedness is something that you want to learn more about or talk through, if you can just check it off for me, that would be great. So I have a whole stack, and if you're interested, please just come and see me, and you can fill it out and everything, and I'll be in touch with President Dukes so that we can.
In to Peaksville dinner, the first one. I was blown away. I was blown away. Anybody who thought they was anybody, who mother had told them what they was somebody, or their grandmother. It was generation, old, young, middle age, whatever age. Anybody who thought they was somebody, whether they was a superintendent, whether they was a teacher, or what, crowded that place. This year, Brother McDonald was having some problems. He said, called the office and he said, I need somebody. I said, okay. I said, Jeff Eden, you going up there. You have to go through bare mountains. Lottie driving, and Lottie be talking while she driving. I said, Lottie, what is this? She said, oh, I remember going up here a good while ago, and I know how to get to Peekskill. I said, well, it's not really in Peekskill, it's out from Peekskill where they have the dinner. I said, Lottie, do we know where we're going? Oh, yes, yes, Ms. Dukes. Going around mountains. I said, Lord, don't move this mountain. Just give us strength to go around. Nah, we finally got there. Jeff called me, he was blown away. One of the younger branches, a man with energy. His executive committee, stand back up again.
That's right, the executive committee.
Stand-
No, y'all gotta stand up with me. No, you standing up with me. Stand up with me. Stand up with me.
Black and white. Jew and Gentile. That's the mission. Some of us are so old we don't even know what the mission is about. A little dimension might be setting in. So you need to go. I'm not kidding now. You know, stand up, Lucius. Last year, the theme at the National Convention was what?
Steadfast and immovable.
Steadfast and unmovable. I would be going into the convention hall at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning because of what Miss Edmay told you. I was on my knees, pulling boxes,
That was crazy.
running around like a wild woman. We won't have that anymore. But Lucius would be up on time for his regional meeting. Some of you don't go to no meeting, you use it for your vacation. Don't send nobody like that from your branch no more. You ought to know whether they got a report or not. They ought not to go. Mr. McDonald showed up and said, I can't stay, but I got people to stay. Like at the convention, Peekskill was running around all through the convention in Niagara Falls, just getting stuff. They had one of their members with a stenographer. She was typing everything they said. So they branch got a report when they got back. Because she had it on record. At every session, she didn't move. She had her computer. I said, did they still send a stenographer? That's commitment.
Yes, yes.
You need to find some people who do not want to take this as a social club.
That's right.
Now, I'm not against it. I'm a link. I'm a Delta. I'm assistant to my pastor in my church. But didn't they tell you that the Image Award is happening in California? I have missed the Image Award in 20-some years. Priority. This was the date of the New York State Conference quarterly meeting. I was not. The priority is to get us the state conference focus on a 2018 agenda.
Leadership.
And I needed to be here as the person you re-elected in Niagara Falls to give directions. And that's what you are to do in your branches. That the people elect you, then it's your responsibility to set an agenda for that branch. You incorporate national, the state and your branch. You melt them together. And that's a strong, healthy branch.
Amen.
No man or woman is an island to themselves.
That's right.
And so that is why it's important that that's why you have officers. If the branch president couldn't come, where's the first vice president? Where's the secretary? Where's somebody from the executive committee? Mr. Burt, where's the Bronx people? Mr. Burt, burying his mother, made sure that he responded how many members was coming, who was going to attend, who was going to have lunch. That's a commitment. He could have just went on to bury his mother today and said, I'm out of here. I'm in Virginia. Those are the things that make us strong. In unity, there is strength.
Amen.
You might not like me. This is not about like. This is about you took an oath of office. And in the oath of office for this association, it says personal, that you will not let that confuse you in your work. So when I have crazy people writing us crazy letters about what they don't like and making up stories, I can't deal with that. I will be at, yesterday, 2 national Delta's presidents died. One, Franklin Freeman, her brother was Mr. Ed Muse. Everybody who's been around any time knew Ed Muse. That's his sister, who became the first EOC commissioner. He gave her the Spingarn Award about several years ago. She passed, and then Norma Bailey, who's in here, Delta. 2 of them died yesterday. I got the death from Mona Bailey at 3:30, and then Ms. Freeman last night. But last Wednesday, the first vice president of my Links chapter, husband came home, she's sitting in her den, in a chair, dead. Her service is Tuesday at Riverside. I was at the funeral for Erica Gardner, 27 years old, asthma, heart attack. Woman who owned Cove in Harlem, sister, 33-year-old, died, heart attack. We don't have time, it's enough stress just to turn on TV and see 45. And to see those Negroes standing with him yesterday.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
It was enough
Tell the truth.
for me to want to get a gun.
Tell the truth.
I was so angry. I thank God for blessing me. I don't own a gun, never have. But I could see how people snap. Because when I saw that picture, I got so angry that if I had had something to go up to find them, the only one that I knew standing there was Carson, and I really have given him up long ago. I know he's over. He's gone. But I don't know who those others was. But it was disgraceful. Disgraceful. Just like our branch. To use the name of MLK Jr. in this light. When the man had talked about Haitians. And you gonna go stand with him
right.
and validate him?
That's right. Yeah, no way.
You validating this
You
man?
don't show up. That's right.
Where have we come to? I remember sitting on that chair. We're gonna have lunch at 12:30. It's almost that now. I remember sitting on the porch as a little girl, and my grandmother, how many of you all had grandparents belong to those insurance in the South where they paid a nickel a week, $10, but they didn't have to ask nobody to bury anybody when they died. They didn't have go me funds and give me funds. They buried their people with dignity.
That's right.
Now funerals didn't cost that much that time, but they didn't beg nobody because they paid that 5 cents or 10 cents. And I'm sitting on the porch with my grandmother, and a white man came by and he said, "Hey, auntie, how you doing today?" My grandmother with her starched clothes on and her apron, sitting in her swing, said to him, "You ain't never had an auntie as black as me." She said, "Get the hell off of my porch and don't ever come back again." And for people in 2018 to stand and validate a man who is a racist, a bigot,
Say it.
have no compassion
Tell the truth.
for human beings and human rights, we must get a grip on who we are. We must stand for something or fall for anything.
Right.
And as long as you tell me you the president of a NAACP branch in New York State, you're gonna do some advocacy work. You might not do it all, but you're gonna do some of it.
Amen.
Our children needs attention. We need to make public schools. We have never told parents where to send their children to school. But we know most kids who are black and brown and poor is going to go to public schools because charter cherry pick. They cherry pick. We had hearings all last year, and I know what I'm talking about. We went to 7 states. I paid my way everywhere. And UFT, Anthony, Jeff Eden, Hilda Rogers, we pulled the hearing together here in New York. We got on record what we're talking about. We got black people who are downing the NAACP on this. Fine, send your children wherever you want to, but we're gonna fight for public schools that have qualified teachers, that our children.
Right.
I've already signed on the letter. It took us 10 years for the courts to sign off that our schools in New York City, our schools in Rochester, our schools in Buffalo, where poor children go, don't get the resources like the wealthy places in Scarsdale and on Long Island. It's a different in Freeport, Roosevelt, and in Baldwin. It's a different in Wyandanch, and it is in Bayshore. So we're gonna fight till hell freezes over for quality education, for public schools, with them receiving the resources they need, and for us to have the teachers who are qualified. I don't need a gym teacher teaching somebody about computer science. I need a computer science teacher. And I need you to go to every village hall, every county executive office that you are in, everybody who's elected, whether they Democrat, Republican, Green Pea, Sour Pea, whatever. As long as they elected where they got a vote in the state and the assembly, you need to be in their office looking in their faces and not only threaten them, but go out and do the voter registration and get people turned out to vote. Vote them in and vote them out. We don't have no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. We have permanent people that want to do and uplift human beings. We're advocacy for equality and justice. That's the mission. That's what Medgar Evers died for. He didn't die for a chicken dinner. He died because he was getting people registered to vote. That's why they took him out. So if you're not willing to die for something, you'll die for anything. And you won't die at all. Because what Sterling said, when you're silent, when you are silent and don't raise your voice for racism, when racism raises ugly head, you ought to be there to call them up and call them out. That's what I do. And that's what you need to do. If you're not prepared to do that, then you ought to hand me your resignation first, because I want you gone anyway. But that's what 2018 brings for us. Now the lunch is ready. We're coming back in here at 1:30, and we're going to go with our agenda. We're going to have our my reappointments that you will verify here today of my meeting committee chairs. And as Derek Johnson, I got it in your folder what he said. And that's what he mean. You can't pull the wool over him, because I say he been in the trenches. He don't have to learn NAACP. He know it. And he don't have to hear about you all, because he know about you all too. But this year, we couldn't even get a black speaker in New York State. What a disgrace. What a disgrace. We got work to do.
Yes, we do.
We got work to do. Convention, because we knew we were moving into the holiday season. And I didn't want the chairman of the board or the president of the association to come, and they did not speak to the president. So what we did in October, for those of you who was not there, we put an hour time for the board of directors chair, Mr. Russell, to speak with our leadership, which was our branch presidents. Our little millennium president, Joy Williams, decided every 5 minutes to come out and ask me, could I give him more time? So while we had an hour devoted for the listening tour, I think they kept the chairman in there about 2 hours, didn't you? And so therefore we was running late for our dinner time. So in order for people, we had bought tickets for some of us to travel together to keep the expense down to Niagara Falls. So what happened, we didn't do our resolutions on a Sunday morning. And what I've asked the chairs to do, to send from their workshop resolutions in. Presidents, everybody should have, and committee chairs, in your folder, you will have a list of the resolutions that the chairs have sent in. What we have done at National, and it was approved, it's not in the Constitution, about 5 years ago, they said committee and executive committees could have teleconference meetings. We do it at the national level. All of the meetings, beside the ones that we have, like in February when we have the first national board, that's face-to-face and board meetings. But for the executive committee meeting monthly, Mr. Russell called the 17 members of the National Executive Committee by teleconference. So I'm not breaking any laws. Our executive committee calls will be by teleconference. By teleconference. We will not, because people are all over the states, from all across the state. So we will not be putting that down on the expense of you of that. So we will do it by teleconference. Also, in March, I have L. Joy Williams have given to me the days that they will be in session. The governor said, I attend the State of the State. The governor is again paused to have a budget on time. Our budget in New York is when? When do the governor present his budget?
April.
What? April 1st. So, in March, they really get down to saying what monies they begin to negotiate. They don't do this till in the middle of the night, really. The final version is done somewhere like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning before the April 1st date. We want to go in March when negotiation is starting so we can pinpoint people to say we want our funds for public education. We've got some things to work on in criminal justice. You know, we did get raised the age past last year. But as you heard at the convention, there are some things we want to look at in that bill that might cause for amendment or for a new bill. The bill wasn't killed because we wanted something to work from. So there are issues that was passed in 2017. Enough money might not have been appropriated for a bill or whatever. So with that, when I get to the presentation of committees and regional directors, I'll go deeper into that. But what I'm going to be sending out to you is the dates in March that we know they will be in session. When I get back, the majority are presidents who say they will have people participating in the Albany mobilization. We will set a date. If you don't respond to the email, then we know that you are not interested in the Albany mobilization. But we've also built in district mobilization. That means after we go to Albany, that you and members of your branch ought to be visiting your elected officials when they are home. That means in district. Go to see them. Let them know that you live in a district and that you vote for them. And tell them our issues. You will have our issues and talking points for you to do. Then for New York City, with a new speaker and new members in the New York City Council, we need to, and I must say the speaker, we didn't endorse a person. What our Twitter account said, it was time for an African American speaker. That's what our Twitter, the NAACP Twitter said. Didn't say who. It was about 12 of them, Hispanic and black, who had thought they wanted to run. I think it came down to, how many of them was a Joy out there? It was Torres, who is Hispanic. It was Jemani Williams, African American. Carnegie, what's the guy from Queens' name? Who? Donovan Richards. So I think we had 4 blacks running and 1 Hispanic was in the race, and about 3 whites were in the race. So our Twitter account just said it was time for us to have a African American speaker. We didn't get it. The speaker has reached out to me. Corey Johnson has reached out to me by telephone and by his staff setting up a meeting. And after that, I will have him to meet with the Metropolitan Council branches. He seems to be, I don't know anything about him. I've just heard some reports that he's a hardworking person and all of that. The date of the National Convention is July the 14th through the 18th in San Antonio, Texas. There is going to be some new things that is going to be done for registration and other things, so you need to keep your eye on that. And we're giving you the dates of the meeting for May and for August. And the 82nd State Convention is October the 5th and 7th. We have bids out, 2 hotels at this time, 1 in Albany, 1 I don't know the other place that Tommy is working with. But anyway, we've had that. And then we have an election. We have a primary. Now there's some if and ands, well, the primary is gonna be in June or September. The state has not said when it's gonna be. I talked to the Board of Election here in New York City. They have it for June. But last 2 years ago, you know, we got into this thing where they did September and November, which confused a lot of people. We had people going around in Harlem told us, oh yeah, I voted. We said, no, you didn't. Yes, I did. We said, you voted in a primary. There's a general election. So our people need a lot of education. So therefore, as Ms. Edmay told you, 2018 is going to be key for civic engagement. You're going to have to respond in a timely fashion. You're going to have to know what the dates are and start getting your material and educating people on that. So anybody have any concerns, presidents, on this calendar for 2018? A neighbor as thyself. Who is my neighbor?
Everybody.
Anybody. Not your next door neighbor, but who is my neighbor? You reached out, you heard the young people talking about the women who are in shelters. You know what has happened in Haiti. Every time Haiti think it's coming back, another disaster, something is on them. So we shouldn't forget about those persons. So if we're going to reclaim Dr. King's assassination, not just for Monday, but it ought to be 365 days of the work of the NAACP to fight for equality and justice for all, even those who are against us. When you hear our health chair say, some people didn't know. I never told anybody about Obamacare. It wasn't about Obamacare. It was affordable health care, and we got around talking about Obamacare, and so racist people took that and had this dodo 45 saying that was the first thing he was going to do until they realized that it was hurting them too. And so we ought to be careful with language that we use. It was never affordable health care. Obamacare. It was affordable health care. And if a lot of people had been educated, they wouldn't have voted for 45. They tell them all these things he was going to do. This was the first thing he was going to do. But we have to be intelligent enough. That's why when you come here, I try to give you intelligence. Not a lot of hype, but intelligence, so when you go back into your communities, educate our people. They need education. Some of the things that we do in our community, we are not educated. We don't know the facts. So if anybody come in and tell us that the black cat run across your path, you're going to have bad luck, we repeat it to everybody else. Don't let no black cat run across your cat. Ain't got nothing to do with going across your path. You decide what your path is going to be. You reach for the opportunities. The cat ain't got nothing to do with you. But somebody said it and you believe it. And so you repeat it too. And so our communities suffer from misinformation. And so our duty, every branch, ought to have a program that educate our community. A forum that educate the community. Whatever is going on in your community, if it's a negative, you have the opportunity as NAACP to turn it to a positive. Because if you don't know, call us. We have the Washington Bureau. We have all the departments at National. We have the website at National. They can give you correct information. So I implore you today as you leave here as an ambassador, Reclaim the dream. Just not let January the 15th be a day where everybody run around like crazy. I just told you my schedule. That's crazy. What do we do after the 15th? Do we go home and go to sleep? And then wait till next January to talk about Dr. King? No, let's reclaim the dream, not the man. It wasn't the man. It wasn't the map, it was the plan. We need a plan of action. We've laid out to you what we think will be a guidance. You go back, your charter is given to you for your community that you are to serve. You go back and get a pulse of what's going on in your community and bring your partners together. No man or woman is an island to themselves. No NAACP branch have all the answers. You need partners. Partners that is on the same page with us. Partners who are not trying to come in and take over NAACP. We have a lot of those around. You have to understand who your partners are. You need to sit down and talk with them before you become in partnership with them. Some people want to use our branch because they couldn't get nobody to come to nothing they said because nobody ever heard them. So they want to put NAACP name so they can get somebody to follow them. So you have to be careful on that, how the name is used. These 4 letters have been around for 108 years. Not somebody who woke up last night and thought they want to be a leader. So I implore you to leave here reclaiming the dream, not the man. He's not coming back. If he was, I don't want to be here. I'm not even looking for my mother to come back. But I'm looking to take on some of her legacy that she left within me. And so let's take on the dream that Dr. King had. That black children and white children, Jew and Gentile could walk together hand in hand. That was the dream, that we come together as a country, not building walls, not excluding people, regardless of where they come from, what language they speak. That when they come to these shows, why do the Statue of Liberty say, come, come, bring me your tithe? They didn't say bring me Norwood. They didn't say bring me everybody who's a millionaire. They said bring me your poor. So the poor is going to be with us, always. Mental health. Everybody don't need to go to jail. Some people need mental health treatment. So these are the things. Al Joy was telling me about the man in Brooklyn. She said everybody knew that man before he pushed the person off. Everybody knew him. She said they had been seeing him walking around, talking to himself, all over the place. So why wasn't he arrested and put in a mental institution? Then for him now, talking about sentencing for life, that still won't help him. Because some judge might give him a parole. And he'll be just as crazy as he was before he pushed because he didn't get any help. And so we got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to educate our children. To see that our kids get the best education. Our kids are not dumb. Our kids are just as smart as anyone else. But they need somebody that's caring in the classroom. We need to push for men in classrooms. There's so much that need to be done till nobody should have a time to go to a branch meeting with some foolishness or arguing about who's going to be the honoree for dinner, where the dinner's going to be. That ought to be on the back end. The front end ought to be about advocacy. What can you do to service your community? So let's leave here today. You have an announcement, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
It was more or less a comment.
That's okay.
About voting and voting deadlines. I love that the deadlines have all been passed out in those packets that we all have, but I was looking through them and I don't think that anything was mentioned about if you wanted to change your party affiliation. Now, if you want to vote in a party of your choice this year in the primary, you need to have changed your party affiliation back in October 13th of 2017. So it's not something that we can now do anything about, but it's something that we should probably plan for the following year. The law as it stands.
No, it's in our legislation. We can do something about it now.
Well, that's true.
We can do something about it now. So we don't want to push no doubt in our head. We're going to be fighting till hell freezes over with the governor and the state to change this archaic voting system. You're right what you're saying. But we wanted in 2018 that I can walk in a booth today of election with my identification and vote.
That's right.
That's what we're fighting for, and we're going to fight like hell.
Lady, a petition.
Right, and just for educational reasons.
Right. You're right.
I'm going to read the law, and as it stands, the rules in New York State require previously registered voters to set their party registration by 25 days before the general election of the previous year.
Right.
To vote in a party primary of the following.
That's the reason we're fighting so hard, because it keeps our people from voting. We move around like gypsies sometimes.
And it's an obstacle.
And if we move the night before election, we ought to be able to go in, and we move that morning. And we are citizens, we ought to be able to vote that day. If I move at 8 o'clock and I go to the poll at 10, and I say, I just moved, but I am a citizen, here's my driver's license, or whatever they require, and I ought to be able to vote when I walk to that booth. And it's a shame. My op-ed is my opinion in the Daily News today. I just wrote with Common Cause an opinion. It was supposed to be gone into the Daily News. I didn't pay for it, they paid for it, but my name was there because something important. People will pay attention. So I signed it. It's an opinion that Common Cause paid for about this issue. So we're going to be fighting. That's one of our legislative agenda. You're absolutely right. But we're going to stop that foolishness about when we can vote. If we're citizens, we ought to vote any time of day or week we want to vote. Okay, the youth, would you come up, please? We're swearing the youth in. God of Almighty God, and keeping this pledge. And keeping this pledge. You are duly elected officers.